G'day everyone. We're going to be working through the spanner sketch that you can see on your screen today. This is for a few reasons. Firstly, it is a bit more of a complex sketch than what you've worked on before. There's different constraints we're using. We've got to think a bit harder about how we position what we're drawing on the screen. The other reason is, with this one here, we want to use a new tool which is in the Modify palette here called Rotate, in order for us to rotate half of the spanner around to give us the full spanner. The reason why we're going to do this instead of drawing the whole spanner at once is so that we can make use of, so that we don't have to go ahead and draw all this rather complex geometry twice on each side. We can draw it only once, and then we just rotate it around the central axis, which is there. That's obviously our origin point on our sketch. So that's how we're going to go ahead and draw this spanner. Now you can see that there's a few different things that we haven't popped into a sketch so far. We've got a what looks to be a hexagon here, although it's missing a couple of sides. We've got 3 different arcs in here with different radiuses. We've got 2 with 15mm radius, which have a center point there and there. Then we have a 30mm radius one here, which the center point is the center of the hexagon. We then have just 2 radiuses here and here, both at 50mm. And then one line going to the center here. So there's a bunch of different constraints that we'll obviously have to put on all of that, and we'll use different arc tools for doing our various arcs and so on. We also have a center line in the middle here, which kind of plays into the fact that we may need to use the symmetry constraint as well, this one here. So let's go ahead and start that new part. I've got a part file open here, so I'm going to go ahead and start my 2D sketch on the XY axis. So you can see I've got my origin point in the middle there, we've got the y-axis, we've got the x-axis, as we always have so far. Now to start off with this sketch, what I'd like to start with is the hexagon here. So rather than any other part, I'm going to start with that hexagon and move on from there. So I'm going to use the polygon tool at the bottom of the rectangle palette here in the Create palette. So selecting the polygon tool, mine's already set to 6 sides, you need to check that yours is also. I can pick any point out here and I'm going to make a hexagon, something like that. Okay, you can see when I did that, there was all those different constraints around it, and that's to do with patterning the lines that are used in the hexagon. Next, we've got to put some dimensions on it. And if we have a look back here, between this vertex and this one here, it is a 30mm dimension. Alright, and we can see that that's probably vertical as well, so we might put a dimension on there. And also we have, between the center point of our hexagon and the center line here, our y-axis, it's 92.5mm. So let's pop all those dimensions on. I'm going to start with my 30mm here. You can see mine's very small right now. I'll just type in 30. And there we go, it's gotten much bigger. We'll just zoom out a bit so we can see it. My next one will be between the center point of my hexagon there and the center point of the sketch. And that one was 92.5. Zoom out again. And the final thing I said I wanted to do with this one here was give this side a vertical constraint. Alright, and that's all the constraints we need to put on here for now. You can see there is one dimension still needed, and that's probably to do with where this can move. And we're not going to set that just yet. We'll let that get set by some other constraints later. Now, just quickly, we can see in this sketch here that we're missing 2 sides of our hexagon, so we're going to have to remove those, and we'll do that before we do anything else. So I'm just going to right-click those lines and select Delete. The other way I could do this is using the Trim tool in the Modify palette, and I can just go straight over that line there, and that'll get rid of it. Selecting OK when I'm done, using the right-click there. Now, I think I'd like to continue on making this end at this point, so I'm going to add in these 3 arcs now. So the 2 15mm arcs and the 30mm full radius arcs. So I'm going to click my arc tool, and I think I'll start with the center point arc, because I do know where the center point of all these are. So I'm going to start with these 15mm ones here. So I'll go 1 and 2, and I'll put the 30mm arc in as well. There's a couple of different ways I could do that. I can do it like I have there, where I haven't actually put a specific dimension, I haven't connected it to these side ones yet. Or I could have connected it straight to them, but then things might have gone a bit funny in my sketch because we haven't actually given these a correct length yet. But perhaps we'll try that. Let's delete it and let's do it as a center point and connect it onto those end pieces there. So there we go, we'll connect it there, and oh, you see that doesn't quite connect right there. Alright, we'll have to add some dimensions to those arcs now. So using the dimension tool, that one there, 15 millimeters, sounds correct. And this one here as well. And that one would over constrain, so we don't actually need to put a dimension on that one just yet. So we'll just hit cancel. And we'll add one to this arc here as well. So 30 millimeters. Press enter. There we go. Now down here it may have joined these up correctly, but certainly up here we're not quite right. So let's just click OK there, and let's give it some tangent constraints between these lines. So we'll check this one down here. That one already has one, so that's fantastic. We'll give this end a tangent. And that one is going over constraint. So that kind of tells me that perhaps these lines aren't quite right just yet. And that may have been the way that I drew that line initially. So let's try coincidence constraint between those two. There we go, now they're suiting each other much better. Alright, so that's all my arcs that I've put on there. Let's just have a look at all the constraints that are on here so far. So you can see obviously all the pattern ones around here. And these ones don't actually show many constraints just yet, but I'm sure they will later. Let's just turn those off again, remembering this button down here on the toolbar hides all the constraints. We could also use F9 on the keyboard. Alright, next we're going to add in the lines that go back here. So these ones here on our drawing, and probably that symmetry line as well, and these two arcs. Okay, so we're getting closer to having half of the spanner now. So to my line tool, I'm just going to add in two random lines. Don't have to be anything specific at this point, just like that. Click OK. Now I'm out of the line tool again. I can hit L on my keyboard and that will take me back into it. So there we go, I've added my two lines in. I will go ahead and I'm going to give them a vertical constraint on the ends here because I do want them to stay in the center. So I'm going to constrain them back to that origin point. And that seems to have worked okay. Though we'll find out later if it hasn't. And we do need to start adding these arcs in as well. So let's go ahead and we'll pick the arc tool. This time I'm going to go to the 3-point arc because I don't actually know where the center point of these arcs is going to be yet. So clicking there, and there's one arc, and there's another arc. Now, these are somewhat imperfect. You can see obviously they're not tangent to the lines at all. So I'll go and add those constraints in to start with, just like that, and like that. And I'm going to add a couple more in onto these arcs here as well. That way they'll all attach nicely to each other. And finally, they'll need a dimension. So we'll just add a dimension, and it was 50 millimeters on these two parts. That one was pretty close, 50. There we go, we're looking quite good there. It doesn't quite look like the sketch yet. You can see this one looks a little bit skinnier in this area. So we'll have to fix that up as well. Now to do that, if we have a look at this sketch here, you can see that these lines actually line up with this construction line I've added in. And that construction line lines up with this vertice of the hexagon. And in the case of the bottom line, it's very similar to that line there to the bottom vertice there. So we can add in a constraint to help us with that. We'll go with the coincidence constraint in this case. So I'm going to select that point there and my line, and that makes them on the same line there across the horizontal axis. We'll do the same there. So that's starting to look pretty close to what my sketch looks like. The last thing I want to do here is go ahead and add in my line of symmetry and also give these the symmetrical constraints. So I'm going to select my line tool, again from the Create palette. You can see it's line tool, it's lit up blue there. And I'm going to turn on this center line just here. That'll give us a center line that we can center things around, of course. So let's start with that one right on the axis there. Actually, we'll start in the middle here at our point of origin and move out along the x-axis. And there we go. So that one is going to stay along our x-axis no matter what we do. And now we're just going to add our symmetry constraint in. So I'm selecting the top line there, the bottom line, and the line of symmetry, and snap together. Everything is now fully constrained. Fantastic, and that's exactly what we're after. Now we don't have much left to do here. We've just got to rotate it around our center point so we can give it the other side. So to start that off, I'm just going to move this dimension down a bit so you can see it a bit better. So to start with that, we're going to head up to the Modify palette here, select the Rotate tool, And rather than selecting individual lines or anything, I'm just going to pull from one corner up and over everything, and that selects everything I need. I'm going to select my center point, which is just here, and it's going to say existing dimensions placed on the geometry may restrict the intended operation. And we're going to say to the question there, which is should these dimensions be relaxed if necessary, we're going to say no, we don't want the dimensions relaxed. Same sort of thing to do with the constraints, and again we don't want those constraints removed, so we'll say no to that as well. It will still allow us to do it. We're going to select copy up in the tool bar here. You can see it started copying that around, and I'm just going to make sure I'm at exactly 180 degrees, which I could see there up in the angle box as I did it. And there we go, we've got the other half there. It doesn't look quite right at the moment because it's still all green, and when we're done we'll hit done there. And there you go, 4 dimensions needed on this sketch. So to start off with, some of the dimensions are needed, and I'll just twist some of these around so they're in the more appropriate positions. So everything is clear for you. There we go, that's a bit better now. And yep, that's much better, apart from that 15 there. There we go. Okay, now let's zoom back in so we can see everything. There we go. Now to start off with, let's have a look at what constraints we can probably pop on here. I mean, at the moment I'd say I can probably move everything around a bit like I can there. So it hasn't linked them up entirely. I'll just hit undo on our keyboard. Actually no, we'll leave it like that. So to start off with, we do need to add in a collinear constraint between these lines and the ones on the opposite side. So I'll do that for each of them. So that keeps, that's going to open constraint, so I won't need to do that one. That keeps everything lined up nicely. Still saying 2 dimensions needed, so I've got a couple more I need to put in yet. We're going to need to use a coincidence constraint between 2 of these endpoints as well. That'll hold everything together. And let's see what our last constraint is that we need. And there we go. You can see that that one probably still does need a collinear constraint. So we'll go and try and add that in again. So selecting that line and this one here, still going to over-constrain. Alright, let's just try a coincidence then between the endpoint there and the endpoint there. So select the coincidence constraint, click and click. There we go, fully constrained. So that's how we go about drawing the spanner. Now, at this point you can have a go at making this spanner 3D. So if we were to do that, we'd hit Finish Sketch. We're all done there. We'll just zoom back out for a moment. We would use the Extrude tool in this case. Select the parts we wish to extrude, so I'll select the 2 ends there. In this case, because I want the spanner to look the same either side, and I'm going to make this inner section of different extrusion width or thickness I should say, I'm going to use the symmetric extrude here, because I can extrude in different directions. It is making a solid extrusion here, and we'll do it at probably 5 millimeters. That's probably about the thickness that we would have. Oh, maybe a bit thicker. Let's go 6. 6 millimeters is probably about the thickness we would have a spanner. So we'll hit the tick box, and there we go. Oh, and we've lost a bunch of our sketch. Now, if we still want to extrude that, but to a different thickness, what we can do, over here on our side palette here, we can click on the little plus here, and it will show us the sketch that we've just used. Now, we can use that again by right-clicking, and then clicking Share Sketch. Once we've got that second sketch, again we can go back to Extrude, we can select that extra portion, and rather than go 6 millimeters, we're still going to pick the symmetric extrude around our center there, but this time let's make it 4 millimeters thick. And we'll tick the tick box there. And there you go, we have a spanner that is using all the dimensions, etc. It's fully constrained, and we've extruded it out to 2 different thicknesses. Now at this point, if you want to have a bit of a play with some of the fillet tools, chamfer tools, etc., you can. I think for mine, I'm just going to put a couple of simple fillets on mine. There, there, there. Well, I can't quite see that, so I'll just swivel mine around a little bit. Just come at it from this angle, and there. And, oh, I didn't like that one. Let's undo that. Let's try that again. One more time. Fillet. That one there. And we flip our direction here. That one there. On the opposite side, which is tricky to get. There it is. And one more back the other way. Just there. So we're going to add, in this case, a 2mm fillet. I think that sounds alright. We'll hit tick, and there we go. We've even got some fillets on mine now. So have to play around with that, and there you go. That's drawing the spanner. Thanks for watching the video.